This right here is what's called a stem, and it's common on mountain bikes and road bikes, and it's arguably one of the most important things on your entire bike. And I'm going to walk you through how to adjust it, set it, go through the headset a little bit, and yeah, just show you kind of why you would want to know this. So let's get into it. So the tools you're gonna need are pretty standard. You're gonna need Allen keys. So figure out which size these Allen keys are. So the best way to do that is pick the one you think it is. So I think it's a 4, that's what's in there now. And then just go one higher to make sure it's not a 5, because you really don't wanna be stripping out these bolts, and you wanna make sure that you can tighten it up properly. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take apart the entire headset now, and then at the end, I'll put it back together. One tip here is, since this bolt here is these bolts here are the only ones holding this whole fork in place. If I had this stand and this bike a little higher and I did this with these 3 bolts loose, the whole fork would have dropped down and I would have had a big mess of parts everywhere all over my garage. So the trick I do is with the stand here, which I recommend you have, is just rest that front wheel on the ground, and then you can take it apart nice and easy. So I'll put down a cloth here, and when you're taking it apart, it is best to make sure you do it in order. So this guy is going to be... So now I'm just loosening it off the fork here. Pops off nicely. And that's it, that's all that's connecting. These 2 bolts are the only thing connecting this handlebar to your bike. And it's incredibly important you have this all right. So let's take that off. Got another spacer, again, order. Got a seal here, this just keeps the dirt and everything out of anything below it. And then what I'm going to want to do, it's pretty mucky in there. It's actually a good thing I did this. All right, so now that I got this all apart, I took off the front wheel there, that's what this is from, but I have this all apart. And my headset's nice and clean. So the nice thing about taking the headset apart is I'm able to look and clean out some of these bearings. So you can see here, maybe if I show it on this one, see here is it's quite grimy and gritty and dirty. So it takes, as much as those seals work pretty well, this gives me a chance to really kind of clean it and re-grease these bearings that way. So this is from the bottom. So you can see the sizes are a little different. So this is coming out of the top, and this is coming out of the bottom. So now my sealed cartridge bearings are clean. I've inspected them. They have a little grip to them, but it's really not too bad. They're pretty smooth. I just had a tune, right? So that's not too bad. So my favorite thing in the world is just lots of grease. So what I'm gonna do here, it's not really a pocket to put that in. So what I'll do is I'll make sure there's plenty of grease on the cartridge bearing itself. So this kind of helps seal out any grit and grime. Lets it run smoothly. So put that on there. Excellent. I'll sneak in there. Good. Same thing with the bottom cartridge bearing. I'm just adding grease to it. So I just put it on the top of the fork there, making sure that the beveled edges are matching what the pocket here is going to do. So yeah, now I'm ready to reassemble everything. So now, slide the fork in. Those sealed cartridge bearings, nice and tidy now. You'll see in a second here, when I get everything assembled and I put that top cap on, that's gonna compress the entire setup here. So that's what I'm waiting for. So then putting it back in the same order I took it out. I know which order this is supposed to go in, so it's not too big of a deal for me, but I liked where it was. So I'm gonna keep that on. Now putting the stem on here. Perfect, I'm not worried about where this is. That guy goes on top. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put on the top cap, and this is what's gonna compact everything together. So going by hand at first here, just to make sure it's threaded. So when I'm putting this top cap on, what I want to make sure is that I'm snugging it down. So that's nice and snug. So I'm going to put the wheel back on. So now that everything's assembled again in the headset, the first bolt we're going to be addressing is this top bolt. And what that does is it compacts everything together. So you don't want to be too tight or you're going to wear out those bearings a little too quick. You want to find a nice in-between place of too loose and too tight. And I'll show you at the end how to check that. So that top bolt, I'm comfortable with it. The next ones I'm going to adjust here are these side bolts. So I'll take it off the stand here so I can get the bike set up properly. And I straighten out that front as best I can to line up with the stem. That seems about right. So these side bolts here are what actually connect your handlebars to the bike through that fork. So it's incredibly important you get this right. So that's all set up nice and tight. And then I'm just gonna check the handlebars here. That's tight. Tight, tight, tight. So yeah, I'm feeling confident that this isn't gonna go anywhere. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. The first bolt you set is your top cap here. The second bolts you set are gonna be the ones that attach the stem to the fork. And then we're gonna check these ones as well, just to make sure this whole component set is good so that we're not slipping and there's not a lot of play. The next thing we want to do is actually check if there's any play in the fork in the headset. So what you do is you grab the front brake, you're going to grab this top bit here, and you're going to rock it back and forth. And if it's got no play, you won't feel anything, you won't hear any clunking. So right now I don't have that. And I'll feel down here too. I don't feel any play there, so that's good. If you had this too loose, what you'd feel is a clunk, 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 and a little bit of play. If that's the case, what you need to do is loosen these side bolts first, because if these are tight, this isn't going to do anything. So loosen these side bolts and compress that headset again. So taking your 5mm or whatever your bike is and then tightening it just a little bit. If there was that play. And then once that's tightened, these ones get tightened. So the places that I really like to adjust this, the times and things I want to adjust, is if I want to adjust the stem, say I want to take the stem off, flip it so that my handlebars are a little lower, or if I want to adjust the spacers, I can adjust the spacers pretty easily here. So if I wanted to adjust the spacers, what I would do, first thing is loosen this guy here. Loosen this guy here. And then take off that top cap. And say I wanted to have one more spacer underneath to bring up my handlebars. I would take off that, throw on the spacer, and then put the top cap back on. So again, making sure I'm threading it by hand first and tightening this top bolt before the side ones. That's pretty tight. I can pick up the front and have a feel. Bearings are pretty smooth, doesn't feel too tight. I'm okay with that. Again, I can check if there's any play. I feel a tiny bit of play, so I'm going to give it another quarter turn here. Not even, like a 1/16 of a turn. And there I have, back it off a bit again. Still feels kind of gritty, so I'm going to loosen it a little bit here. No play there, that's good. And that's much smoother. I can feel that there's almost no resistance. That's really nice. So that's going to be nice and effortless. So now that that top cap is set, I'm going to set these side bolts onto the stem. So getting the stem aligned with my front wheel and tightening the side with the proper 4mm for me. Good. So my headset's set up really well now, and I'm really confident in it. And the big things to take away from this are going to be the order in which you do this. So top cap has to be done only if the sides are fully released. And then once that top cap's set, go to the side and get those bolts to clamp onto that fork stem, and you should be all set.